Bonjour, and welcome to another video. And there's something I need to talk about, and it's going to lead into this video. I remember I had a dream. That's right. I'm having those dreams. I was dreaming about being in a room with French President Emmanuel Macron. That's right, I was in a room with French President Emmanuel Macron. Okay, Emmanuel Macron was speaking to me in French, and I couldn't understand what he was saying. Well, keep in mind, to all of you, I speak a little French, but not a lot. Basically, I can say certain words, a few words in French, and say something like this. Salut, je m'appelle, enchanté, and others that I can't think of right now. So anyway, when Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, was speaking to me in French, I'm sitting here listening to this guy, and then I tried to say something to him in French, but I couldn't do it. I remember I said something to him in French. Well, I finally said something to him in French. I spoke a little bit of French, and I had no idea what the heck I was talking about or what I was saying to him about, excuse me. And he just kept speaking French. I just gave up and just started talking to the guy in English. And he still spoke French. And he wouldn't speak to me in English. And then after that, I woke up. And speaking of French President Emmanuel Macron, I saw on the news on France 24 English on YouTube that he was talking to the Prime Minister of India by talking about sending some goods, and he did it in English. And I quickly learned from one of the news reporters or presenters or guest on this show called The Debate with the host or presenter Francois Picard. Yeah, Francois Picard. I can't say his name. Yeah, Francois Picard is the host or presenter of the France 24 English show called The Debate. I think this guy from Britain told Francois that French President Emmanuel Macron didn't want to speak English, and he tries to avoid speaking English. And when I heard that, I'm thinking to myself, okay, it sounds to me like, people like French President Emmanuel Macron and France, or La France, or République Française, don't want to speak English. Anglais. The French don't like to speak English because, some of them don't know English, and some who do speak English are uncomfortable and they don't like it and they don't want to speak it. And Emmanuel Macron, the French president, is one of them. So I did some digging up online, and I found something about the French people in France. and I found something, and it's from Speak. It's from French Speak, and it's titled, "Is it rude to speak English in France?" And before I read this, I was flipping around on YouTube and I found something on YouTube about this guy who's in Quebec, the French-speaking province in Canada, a very francophone province, and he talked about the Quebecois don't know English, and some of them who speak English don't want to speak it, and they're uncomfortable speaking it. So I'm thinking to myself, so people in francophone countries don't like speaking English, and they don't. And, me, I'm trying to speak French, and I have been learning as of late. I've been doing a lot of things as of late, and I didn't have the chance to do it. But I'm gonna stop myself and force myself to learn French through some 101 French lessons video here on YouTube, and learn the language. Learn French, Francais. I look at the language that I'm speaking right now, English. This is the language I'm using to communicate to Anglophone people, English speakers. And it's the language that basically that's all I know. That's the language that I know how to speak. I mean, I've been speaking this language all my life. And I find English to be very boring. It's a very boring, dull, flat language. And I find learning how to speak another language to be exciting and new and fresh. Yeah, I don't, yeah, and why I want to speak French? Because I find the language to be interesting, you know. To be honest with you, I want to use that language to communicate with other francophone people in francophone countries. And also, I want to like say some insulting things and just put people down who speak English and French, and find and do that and find that to be quite hilarious. So let me get right down to on why it is rude to speak English in France. Okay, let me read this. And after I get done reading this, I'm going to give my thoughts. There is a common saying online that French people find it rude if you speak English when you are in France. But is this really true? Let's explore this topic further. The reason that many people assume the French find English rude comes down to a common experience. When they spoke English on their visit to France, people either ignored them, looked confused, or answered in French. This story is found all over the internet, on forums, travel sites, and personal blogs. Many of them tell some version of the "it's rude to speak English in France" tale. Why? The truth is, there are many reasons that French people don't like speaking English with foreigners. It's easy to say this is because they think English is rude, but there are many other reasons for it. the cafe employee who can't speak Chinese. I lived in a large city in Australia currently with a big and diverse university. This unique draw in a lot of exchange students from all over the world, Europe, the US, and Asia. Near this university campus is a little cafe that is frequented by lots of students for a pick-me-up coffee or post-exam meal. The employees in this cafe would see hundreds of students a week, maybe thousands, all of them order in English. Now imagine one of the Chinese students enter this cafe, walks up to the counter, and starts trying to order a meal in Mandarin Chinese. Do you think the cafe worker knows how to understand Mandarin? No. He will know what he said. Just because they work next door to a university with a large number of Mandarin speaking students doesn't mean they automatically understand the language. This is how French people often feel when English speakers walk into their place of work and start rapidly speaking in English. Even if it's a bakery in the same neighborhood as La Tour Eiffel, they may know a word or two or even a few sentences, but their day-to-day lives are experienced in French. So it's so much easier to use your own language. Even if you do know a small amount of this person's native language, you might not know the right words for this situation. Or maybe they use a dialect or accent that you struggle to understand. Well, I went to France, and I walked through the streets of Le Havre, France, in the Normandy region in northwestern France with my sister, and we encountered a woman who was like selling things on the streets along with other people, like rotisserie chicken and clothes and whatnot. The woman came up to me and my sister and started speaking French, and we didn't understand what the woman was saying, so we didn't say anything. And also I communicate with a guy who is a French speaker to with hand signs to tell each other that this homeless guy that walked past us who was talking to himself, the guy told me in a hand sign that the guy was crazy, and I did the same thing back. So yeah, it was funny, but I wasn't around. Well, I guess I was in a different part of France, but if I was in Paris and other parts of France, I'll be like ripped apart. And and I understand that I had some people from France who are viewing the videos on this YouTube channel. So I'm not gonna. So yeah, I think I try to communicate with them in the comments, and they spoke to me. Then when I spoke back to them, they just ignored me. So I see that. So all's well is all is well. So I just gotta take it as a grain of salt and move on. So in order for me to communicate with French speakers in French speaking countries, you know, Quebec in Canada, France in Europe, you know, the Walloon region in southern Belgium, Luxembourg, you know, other French speaking places in the world. I gotta learn French to speak to Francophone people. Okay, let me continue. Français. In France, it is a customary to greet the employees of a store when you enter. French people will walk into a store, scan the room for an employee, and then greet them politely as they enter. We also say goodbye as we leave and wish them a good day. Merci, bonne journée. It's natural for us to thank them for letting us visit the shop. In English speaking countries like UK, Australia, or Ireland, all countries where I lived, it is not common for a person to enter a store without acknowledging the staff. In very casual cafes or restaurants, people may even seat themselves rather than wait to be served. And, and once done, nearly always leave without saying goodbye to the staff. It's local custom and not rude at all. This cultural divide often adds to the misconception about English being rude. It's not so much the language, but the difference in cultural expectations that causes friction. Communicating communicating across a language divide is incredibly difficult. Just like you might feel about your French learning, the French may be feeling about speaking English. We all worry about mixing up our words or forgetting how to say something. This makes it incredibly difficult to expect everyone you meet to be comfortable and confident in using English to speak with you. It's not that they think your English is rude, they just prefer French. That's their comfort zone. Okay. Yeah, I remember I watched an episode of French Connection on France 24 English. And there's two women who host the show. Um, Florence Florence Villeminot, try to pronounce her name. Florence Villeminot and Jeannie Godula. Jeannie Godula is a Franco-American. She's from the U.S. and she's living in France, and she lived in France all her life. So I don't know that much about her. And Florence Villeminot is French, and she's from France. It's just a show that shows English speakers what life is like in France. Okay, let me see. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I got the flashlight flashing in my face so you guys can see, but you guys can barely see my face. So, yeah. Okay. Let me continue reading this. But wait. I think I jumped ahead of myself. Yeah. Yeah, Florence Villeminot, on this episode, walked into this room and gave a demonstration. She started speaking English and asked, "Where's the Eiffel Tower?" And this French woman just sat there, didn't say anything, and just gazed up and looked at her, and just went back to doing what she was doing. And someone who came in there started speaking French, and the French speaking woman communicated to that French speaker. So, and my sister, being the rude American that she is, when I was in France with her in Le Havre, she was walking around looking for a souvenir shop. I just sat there and just bent, just was being very, very quiet. Excuse me. I just went with her through the city. I was quiet and she was yelling and shouting and being rude and ignorant. I was very quiet. I didn't say anything. So I was being very respectful. I was very quiet, and, and I didn't speak a lick of French. So it didn't bother me. It didn't make me sad. It didn't make me angry. And my sister was yelling and shouting. And she came into a shop and spoke to a guy in English. And this guy who was at this shop, he spoke English. It was basically a souvenir shop. And come to find out, one of the locals told my sister that it was Bastille Day, and all the souvenir shops were closed. And I didn't know what Bastille Day was. Okay, let me continue. Yeah, I was jumping ahead myself because I forgot to mention the rest of the story. Florence Villeneuve and Jeannie Godula and the French Connection show, and yeah. Okay, the fact that you are reading this article is a great start. It means you're curious enough to wonder about the French language and culture. By showing this into and perhaps practicing few French phrases, you're unlikely to come across a French person who thinks you are being rude. To make your conversations run a bit more smoothly, consider learning and practicing some simple French words and phrases. That's what I've been doing as of late in the past. I've been doing it right now, but I'm going to do it. Often, if you can start a conversation in your native language, French people are much more willing to attempt to use English with you. Okay. To get you started, here are some great phrases to help you make a good impression. Bonjour, hello, good morning. Pardon, excusez-moi. Pardon, excuse me. Merci, merci beaucoup. Thank you. Thank you very much. J'avais merci. Non merci. No thank you. Okay, to learn more phrases, practically for traveling, take a look at our blog post. And it just shows a lot of blog posts. I'm reading this. Okay. Remember, the majority of French people don't think that speaking English is rude. Yes, some of them, not all of them, think speaking English to them is rude because those people are fluent in English and French. Okay. I'm going to read this again. Remember, the majority of French people don't think that speaking English is rude. They are simply more comfortable speaking French with you. Try asking some simple questions in French to break the ice. Once they see you are attempting to speak French, they may feel more comfortable using English with you. If you really get stuck, consider this great sentence. Son je ne parle ton français. Sorry, I don't speak French. Okay, so reading that, that tells me that the French people are not rude. It's just that they're just comfortable with speaking their native language, French, français. That's what they're comfortable with. So yeah, they're comfortable with speaking French than English. Here's some French phrases and things that I've been learning as of late. Okay, Nouvelle France, New France. Nouvelle Angleterre, New England. Nouvelle-Éliscos, Nouvelle-Éliscos, New Scotland. Divided highway, divisée autoroute. Entrée Itelny, entrée Itelny, entrée Itelny, entrée Itelny. Entry prohibited. Alerte obligatoire, alerte obligatoire. Stop compulsory. Je vous remercie. États-Unis, États-Unis. That's French for United States. Okay, Louisiana, Louisiane. Bonjour, bonsoir, au revoir, au revoir, au revoir. Mauvaise direction, wrong direction. So that's a few words, few phrases that I can say in French. You know, it's basically, I look at it, it's like a mixture of Quebec French and Canada, or Français Québécois and Metropolitan French spoken in France. It's kind of like a mixture of it. And also, I've learned that if you're a French speaker from Quebec in Canada, and if you go to France and speak Quebec French or Français Québécois, Français Québécois, then the Francophone people in France, or the République Française, yeah, forgot to say that, with a long line of things I was saying in French, they will find that rude. If you speak Quebec French and France, the French people there will find it very, very rude. So, I guess if I was a French speaker who live in Quebec, if I live in Rivière-Bodac, near the Ontario border, Montreal or Montreal, or Quebec or Quebec, Quebec City, Sherbrooke. If I live in any of these places in Quebec and I go to France, I gotta change up my words and speak proper French that the people in France speak. Because if I go over there and speak all of that slang from Quebec, those Francophone people will find it very, very, very rude. But I don't know if all French people in France are like that, so I don't know. I don't hate the French. I got nothing against the French people. But before I end this video, I heard that French people, they don't like someone telling them what to do. They have a superiority complex. They complain a lot, and they don't take baths. They don't take showers, and they smell bad. So I don't know. I'm not gonna put these people down. But I just did. I just put these people down. So yeah. So anyway, that's all I gotta say in this video. Je vous remercie. Merci. Merci beaucoup. Au revoir.